today is by Kordan. Daniel is a landscape and travel photographer from Russia. He has an Instagram account with about 1.5 million followers and spends about 10 months a year traveling the world, which he describes as being a world citizen. He's currently working on 2 long-term projects. One is a yachting expedition called Two Poles that sees him traveling from St. Petersburg to Antarctica. It's taken Daniel years of hard work to build a strong portfolio, and he's achieved this pretty much on his own, with no commissions. But that hard work paid off, and he is now widely recognized for his work. Daniel dreams about upcoming adventures and the exciting experiences ahead. And here to tell us about them, please welcome Daniel Kordan.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to open exposure seminars today. And this is my talk about indigenous cultures in the modern world. So this project, it's quite new to me. It started about 4 or 5 years ago. And my main background was to organize photography tours. So I run Iceland Photo Tours company. I'm a partner in this company. And my main job was to seek for new roads, for new destinations. So we have about 45 countries. And before just concentrating on this project, I was mainly shooting landscape and nature. But sometimes we were staying in local communities. And at some point, I just realized how beautiful these people are and how they actually belong to the communities, to the nature they live in. And sometimes it feels like these people, they're the part of the nature. And this the place they belong to. And I decided to spend some time traveling to Kenya, to Mongolia, working on this project, and currently also working on a local communities project in Russia. So this is the talk about this little project, not just about landscape, but also about beautiful people around the world. The project mission is actually to inspire people about local cultures, about local communities, and bring awareness about these people. They also struggle during COVID times, during pandemic. They also struggle about isolation from the whole world, yes? And another goal, another mission is to establish foundations to help bring awareness about problems of their communities. And we're here in Dubai, and in Dubai I have a bit strange feel because there are people from all over the world in Dubai, from all over the countries, but we all look kind of the same. Yeah, we wear the same short, the same t-shirts, the same wear, and it's really hard to distinguish different cultures. It's really hard to find this vivid personality right now because we're all mixed, and eventually our world, it just can become a westernized type of the world of community where people actually tend to forget about their past. And this project, the mission of this project is helping people bring this memory from the past and help people to distinguish them from others, to bring the cultural element. So how I realized this project? Basically, I traveled to some really remote places, remote corners of our planet, like this is Dagestan in Russia, it's Kafkas Mountains. And I tried to find personalities, very strong characters, and bring them to the places they belong to, they used to live, they used to spend their life. And like this guy here, Ibrahim, he used to live in this old village called Gor in Dagestan, but eventually everyone abandoned this village. So people just flee to the bigger villages, to the bigger cities. So this is another problem of this kind of community. So people just go from the small world they live in, the small community, to big cities to seek for job, to go for modern education. And how I realized this project, I actually stay with these communities. I stay with them for a week, for 2 weeks, until I actually get the proper result. let's say this is a very beautiful family from Mongolia. This is actually Kazakh people. They live in the West Mongolia, and I stayed with them for a couple of weeks in a guest tent. So they put me in a special tent next to their family. So I was not just was like a tourist at this place. I was living with them, helping them, documenting their life. And eventually, yes, they kind of introduced me to their family, to their problems. Yeah, but this project is not only about problems of people. You can tell maybe you have a half full glass or half empty glass. So this project is about half full glass. It's to show the beauty of the people around the world. Of course, they struggle, they have their own problems, sometimes they have poverty and quite poor life, but most of them, they actually live quite happy life. And this is a project about beautiful people. And I try to dress them in, help them to bring to locations so they will be dressed in very traditional outfit. And they bring animals like camels, the Mongolian people, they bring golden eagles with them. And we photograph them in a kind of natural habitat, the place they belong to. Let's say this is a beautiful woman, but she's not a model. She's a Greenlandic woman. Yes, her name is Parna. She lives in a town called, in a village called Ilulissat in the West Greenland. Ilulissat means iceberg in its Greenlandic word. And you see this costume, you see this dress, she actually makes it herself since she was a little kid. She started to make it from beads, from little threads of silk, and she's making this dress for her whole life. So when she's making it, it kind of connects her to the history, to the past. It's kind of heritage she got from grandparents. And even when she talks about this dress, about this costume, she just shines. Her face is full of emotions and full of like thankfulness for what her grandparents passed to her. And of course, another goal is to make people proud of their culture. After I published few images from Kenya, with this beautiful Kenyan people, Samburu people and Maasai people is a Maasai. Kenyan people, they started message me so many messages on my mail and Facebook that really proud to see these beautiful people in our country. So these images, they just help people to be proud of their culture and to pay more attention to the cultural traditions. And definitely there are some foundations that help people survive, especially in Africa. There are many trusts, many foundations you can individually also help to fundraise, to help people get the fresh water, to get education. So also try to bring awareness to these foundations. And educate people, educate especially about treating the animal, protecting the animal. It's a big problem in Africa. It's anti-poaching, yes? So anti-poaching is something that locals need to educate people. Of course, at the edge of the poverty, people just, they forced to take a gun and go in the wild, which is really bad. And still these people, they used to live in harmony with the nature, not just destroying it. And let's move to the story. So let's move to the few trips I undertake, and I will just show you some images and we'll discuss this in details. The part one is the trip to Kenya. So the Kenya trip was in 2018 in August, and I traveled to south of Kenya to meet Maasai people, and to north of Kenya to Ndota Mountains to meet Samburu people. So these are Maasai warriors. The name are Morans. And it's really interesting how this community works. Maasai people, they actually super traditional people. They, despite all the challenges, despite that the government actually forces them to go to big cities, they force them to leave the community, and the national parks, they enlarge their territories, so they prohibit them to use the spears, they prohibit them to hunt. despite all these challenges, they're still keeping to their traditions, and most of them, they're living the traditional life in such communities. And it was very interesting how I started the trip, because I was very naive when I was first coming to Africa. I thought, okay, I'll come to some good hotel, stay there, get a few pictures, but I was really disappointed at first, because when I come to hotel, I come to Maasai village, and it looked more like a show for tourists. And this is, I felt, that's something I cannot make any good pictures, I cannot tell the story about these people. So I decided to take these guys and go on a hiking trip with them. Go on a hiking trip in wild Africa, like they used to go in the wild times. And we spent about a week with Maasai people, just going in the wild and hiking and just sleeping on the rocks and sleeping just on a simple, I was sleeping on a simple mattress, and these guys were just sleeping, they were finding some cave and sleeping inside on the branches. It's a crazy trip, and it's really different from what you can see from safari vehicle. When you go on safari and you see animals just behind the glass or outside the car, it's super different from what you can experience in Africa when you're walking. When you're hiking in Africa, you can actually start hearing all the sounds, you start listening to nature. And from Maasai people, the first thing I learned is to listen to the nature. And I understood at this point that we, as a modern people of the modern world, sometimes we forget how to listen to the nature, how to understand the signs of nature. So this will bring the harmony, this will bring the peace between the person and the nature. And even Maasai people, sometimes they were finding some little branch on the pathway. It was broken in some way. And my Maasai guide, he told me, okay, this was a leopard. It was sitting on this tree an hour ago, and now it went this direction. The leopard was like 2 or 3 years old, a small one. So this guy, just by the way how the branch was broken, he can tell everything about the animal. They really know how to listen to nature, how to understand the signs of nature. Maasai community, they have about 900,000 people right now, and definitely just a few percent of out of 900,000 people, they still live the traditional life. And I think most of the things they actually start when we're kids. It's starting at school. When Maasai people go to school, the government-driven school, what actually happens, the government tends to provide some rules for them. So they need to cut their hair, they need to just wear some traditional, they need to wear the classical dress. Everyone is wearing it, including people from school, from cities in the school. And what eventually they get a person who will grow up, and this person will go to the big city, he will start his job. Maasai, they're quite good in security. He starts his security business or just apply to the job, and eventually it will be a person who start forgetting his past, start forgetting his tradition. But it's surprisingly that Maasai people and these are Samburu people, they're still keeping to these traditions, especially Samburu people. Samburu, they actually live a very poor life, and the conditions in the north of Kenya, they're really, really bad. It's very hot there. It's plus 40, 45 Celsius. And I recall when we take the trip there, we were the only tourists at this place, the only people who come there. We take a lot of water with us, just boxes with water. And with my driver, we were just giving this water to kids there, and they were really happy. They didn't want any chocolates, any like gifts from us. They just wanted the bottle of water. So this thing I really remember very well. But still, even Kenyan government, many times, they proposed these people, Samburu people, to go to the cities. They provided them some apartments, the job, but still, Samburu, they're keeping to their traditions. And you can see that they're happy. they're happy to live this kind of nomadic life, to be with their animals, to be in the nature, in the wild. And I did the same in the north of Kenya. I did the same with Samburu. So I decided not just stay in a little village, but to take a few Samburu people and go with them to the very remote Ndota Mountains. So these are granite mountains in the north of Kenya. And I mentioned a little bit about fundraising and a bit about trusts in Kenya, in Africa in general. Very good example is the Milky's Trust. So if you're interested how it's working, there's a website, milkystrust.com there. The system works the following way. They have kind of ambassadors, kind of protectors within the community. They elect kind of the most influential guys from the community, Samburu people. And these guys, they're kind of rangers which protect the community. It's sort of a threat to the modern world. So they try to connect with some big companies, with government, and they tend to help these people, providing them the fresh water, providing education system. So I think it's really, really interesting and nice thing for local communities when you have some strong influential ambassadors within the community. The Samburu people, they're also nomadic tribes. They live in the very north of Kenya, and again, it's very difficult life for them, but sometimes they look like alien people to me. They're super open, they're smiling, and I don't even know their language, and even my driver, my guide, he didn't know Samburu language, but somehow we communicated together with these people. We smiled, we used gestures with these people, and we understood each other. So surprisingly how we can connect just by smiling. And a few images from this expedition. Again, these are Maasai warriors. These are actually young people who about 15, 16 years old. It's kind of very staged system, the traditional system. And some Samburu people as well in traditional outfit. Again, Morans, warriors. And let's move to another story, the second part. It's Mongolia trip. Mongolia trip was also in 2018 for me, and this is the ger tent on the picture in the night. The ger tent we stayed in. So locals, they set up the tent for us, and we stayed there for a week in October. It was quite a freezing conditions there. Outside was already -10, -5 Celsius in the night. But these people, they live in a very remote area in the West Mongolia. These are actually Kazakh people, and there are just about 400 ethnic Kazakh people left. They live in the territory of Mongolia. So how does it happen? When the Soviet Union collapsed, these people, they kept living on the territory of Mongolia. And even it happened a few times that Kazakh government, they wanted to bring them back to Kazakhstan. They provided flats to them. They wanted them to return to their country. But what Kazakhs did, they actually went back to Kazakhstan. They sold all these apartments and returned back to Mongolia to live the nomadic life. Yes, so they still returned to the traditional way of life. And also, just you see how happy these people are, despite all the challenges, despite very hard situation in winter time when they need to move from location to location. So here is the film I made during my Mongolia expedition, just some backstage of the trip, maybe showcasing a little bit the people and the landscape you can see in Mongolia. Of course, they breed the horses and they move from place to place, definitely living quite a free life. Some images here, you see some frames from Gobi Desert. it's South Mongolia. And the place with mountains, it's Altai Mountains, the Gold Mountains in the West Mongolia, on the border between Mongolia and Russia. So let's move forward. Yeah, so these are Mongolian nomads, Kazakh people, and it's surprising how they get connected to their birds. Golden eagles, and they actually take the golden eagle from the nest while it's still small and keep it until it turns about 8 to 10 years old. And usually it happens when the kid grow up, maybe the kid turns about 14, 15 years old, he can get his own eagle. And then 10 years he spent with the bird. They use the birds to hunt for small animals like foxes and hares, and they make furs, they make basically hunt for meat in the wild and really treat the bird very well. And after it turns 10 years, they release it in the wild. So they just leave the bird in the wild on the rocks, and the bird can live then after for until about 30, 25, 30 years. So this animal already, the bird is already well trained for hunting, so that's why it can survive actually much more time than the normal bird that is not living together with a human. So it's also surprising how these people can get connected to the nature they live in. And before the kid turns about 14, 15 years old, he can just train with a small hawk like this, but he cannot have the eagle. He cannot treat the eagle, the golden eagle, that well, and even can't hold it, because the golden eagle, it's really, really a big bird, about 8, 10 kilograms sometimes. It's really even hard to carry it in a hand. A few more images. So this is the backstage of the place where Kazakh people live, just a couple of rooms, very basic conditions, and they have big family and just super friendly people. And even they have almost nothing there, almost no food, and still they greeted me with everything they have, and they try to provide just as much as they can. So such amazing people here. So also a few images for the golden eagles. And of course the Gobi Desert. As I mentioned, the Gobi Desert is already Mongolia people with Bactrian camels. This is a very beautiful couple that accommodated me in Gobi Desert. I also stayed with them for about a week. And these guys, they have about few hundreds of camels. And their children, they actually study in the good universities in the capital, in Ulaanbaatar, but still, they can go and they can buy any apartment in Ulaanbaatar, in the capital, but still they prefer to stay in the desert. They still prefer to stay with the animals and live quite a happy life. You can see it by their faces. And of course, they can tell numerous stories on the beautiful Milky Way. We just sit near the campfire, and they were telling stories about their past, their ancestors. So they're really keeping these traditions. The story number 3, the part number 3, this is the current project I'm working in. Well, since July, I was traveling in Russia because of pandemic. I couldn't travel to some other remote communities. I was devoting my time to specifically cultures of Russia. And there are about 190 different nationalities in Russia. This is just enormous, so I still have a lot of work to do, as you can imagine, maybe for the rest of my life, taking pictures just of beautiful people of Russia, beautiful nationalities. This is Dagestan. This is Ibrahim. Very interesting person, interesting character. So the idea of this project is not just to take a model and dress him in some dress from museum, but instead take this person, very, very charismatic person who belongs to this place. Ibrahim used to live in this village, in Gore village, for half of his lifetime. And after everyone abandoned this village, people just went to bigger villages, where you have a good road, where you have a good shop. So he abandoned his place as well. But still, when he returns there to this place, he just starts to shine. His face starts to shine, and he told us also so many stories about his ancestors, about just the history of this Gore village with Dagestan battle towers. And this is Ingushetia already. Ingushetia, it's the province, it's a republic, almost neighbor to Dagestan. But still, even if it's very small republic, you can actually drive through for maybe a couple of hours through entire republic, but still the culture of these people are very different, although they are very neighbors. And the difference is in culture, it's in traditions, it's in their outfit, and it's really amazing. This girl here, her name is Dauli. So Dauli, she's granddaughter of one of the guys, of one of the men who built these towers, who built these battle towers in Ingushetia. So when she comes there, it's also very different. Her face changes, and it really feels she belongs to the place, and she appreciates the stories about her ancestors. Although this place is also abandoned and almost no one is living there, it's like a national park. Right now it's just the pure history. And also some pictures from Dagestan, traditional outfit for traditional dress for men and women. And this is my most recent trip, actually just before visiting Dubai, before coming here. I was at Baikal Lake in Siberia, in the heart of Siberia. It was minus 25 Celsius, really freezing, so it's good to come here to Dubai to warm up a little bit. You see, I'm still wearing a jacket, but it's not really necessary anymore. Yeah, so at Baikal Lake, I met this beautiful family. They live in a small village with just 40 people, just 40 persons living in this village, and these are the only kids that remain in the small village. They live on a small island, Alkhon, at Baikal Lake, and Alkhon, this place, this island, it's isolated a couple of months from the mainland. So these people, they are kind of isolated also from the other world. These are Buryat people. And still, they're keeping to their traditions, although the girl here, Ayuna, she's on the right, she needs to go to the school they drive them to the school 12 kilometers each day on the just bumpy, frozen road. 12 kilometers they drive to Khuzhir, another village. And still, I ask her, what's your future, what you dream of? And she's dreaming of going to study in St. Petersburg. So that means most probably these are the last people who I encounter from this village. So again, the same story. Most of the people, they tend to abandon the villages, they tend to go to big cities and mix with other cultures. So this is a traditional Buryat dress at Baikal Lake. So also such amazing and warm heart people. a little bit more images about Ayuna, Baikal Lake. And behind here, it's a very special place. It's kind of place of force at Baikal Lake. It's a very strong place called Shamanka. It's from the word shaman. Basically, at Baikal Lake in Siberia, Baikal Lake is the deepest lake in the world, and it's actually the largest skating ground in the world. It's hundreds of kilometers of pure ice where you can actually skate, where you can drive the car in winter. Although the driving is always very complicated and you can just even drown in the crack in the ice. So you need to be very careful there. And this place is its concentration of different cultures, how they live in harmony together. There are Buddhist people, there are shaman people who actually appreciate elements of nature and have traditional rituals, and Russian Christian people, Orthodox people. And they all kind of live in harmony in this place. And Shamanka, it's very sacred place for the local people. Another story I worked on, another beautiful people in Greenland. So this is Parna. You already met her in previous slides. She got this beautiful dress. She made it all herself. It's just fantastic. Attention to all the details. And since she was really, really small, she started to make her dress. So she's like, her eyes is almost like full of tears when she's talking about this beautiful outfit, about their Greenlandic traditions, about how they appreciate, even when they go hunting, when they go fishing, they use the whole animal. They're not just wasting the food there. And even when they needed to go to hunt, they kind of pray for animal, and even bones. They make everything from bones of animals. It's really interesting how they live this traditional life in Greenland. This is a little film here we made together with very talented German filmmaker Dennis Schmelz about our Greenland adventure. So when I'm making tours in Greenland, I'm emphasizing not only on landscape and icebergs and beautiful nature, whales, but I also try to bring all my tourists, bring my photographers to local communities, so locals can also explain them and educate them about their culture and appreciation of nature. If you have a chance, you can also visit my exhibition here. It's called Magical World, so you can see also a few images with red sails as well. We bring this boat, we sail with this boat from St. Petersburg to Greenland. And since 2015, we were also sailing all the way from Greenland down to Antarctica using this boat. So this is Parna again, little Greenlandic dogs. And these are small villages they live in, just sometimes very remote places with only maybe 20, 30 houses. It's also absolutely fantastic to see how they educate their kids to use the kayak, they educate their kids how to go hunting and live in harmony with this, in these hard conditions. It's also just a couple of months of summertime, and most of the year it's just cold, freezing conditions, so the life there is not that simple. Although again they're facing the same problems as all other communities, the problem of identity, right? Because Greenland is a territory of Denmark, so Denmark, they also, on one hand, they're bringing the civilization, they're bringing the education. People can go to Copenhagen, they can study there, they can just educate themselves, right? But on the other hand, is a big problem that they're mixing with other people in the modern world, and somehow they also tend to lose their identity. So the idea I was trying to bring you during this short talk, during this short speech, is that we all must find this vivid color of our cultures and appreciate the traditions. Maybe talk to our parents, talk to our grandparents, and just try to pass our traditions to generations. And if you ever will be in local community, try to support these people, try to encourage them to save these traditions and let them know that they're doing the right thing, that they're passing the cultural traditions in generations. So we will have this vivid, bright people, happy people in our world, different people saving their cultural traditions. Thank you for listening, guys.
Daniel, thank you so much for sharing those wonderful images and your adventures, and good luck on the trip down to Antarctica. Ladies and gentlemen, our next presentation is only going to be in 5 minutes' time, so you're welcome just to wait while we reload and reset. So Ron B. Wilson will be with us in about 5 minutes. Thank you.